영어 독서 요 며칠 동안 못해서 마음에 죄를 지은 것처럼 하고 있습니다. 읽도록 하겠습니다. 제목은요. 윌리엄 스테이그의 The Real Thief라는 책입니다. Naturally, whenever the king moved anything from the treasury or added anything to it, he informed Gawain of the changes. Gawain always enjoyed these short conferences with the king. He looked forward to them. For a long time, nothing was amiss. All was peaceful, though boring. But one day, in his routine checkup, it seemed to Gawain that the pile of rubies was smaller than it should have been. He counted hastily and went flapping and running to the king to report that something was missing. King Basil calmed him. He put down his pot of honey, wiped his fingers, and together they went back to the treasury. By the light of a lamp, they carefully counted the rubies, both calling out the numbers. Sure enough, there were only 43 of the red gems, when they should have been 8,672. 29 rubies had disappeared. King Basil and his chief guard of the royal treasury looked at each other. The king lifted the lamp and held it to Gawain's face. How could anyone have gotten in here? He asked. Only you and I have keys. Could you possibly have left the door open by mistake? Oh, no, Your Highness, said Gawain. I'm always careful. I check. I double-check, and I re-double-check. Sometimes my mind may wander, but my eyes are always wide open. I see left and I see right at the same time. I don't see so well forward, but no one can get by me without passing either my left eye or my right eye. Harvey, Garby, and Wetmore was summoned, and each came running, holding his halberd, and stood at attention in front of the king. They were questioned in turn. No, they said, if anything out of the ordinary had happened, they would surely have reported it, for that was their duty. Those who usually passed by hand passed. There had been an occasional foreigner sightseer. Nothing else. No one had come near the door. The rocks were examined by expert locksmiths. They were sound. Gawain assured the king that he would be doubtfully careful after this, and doubtfully careful he was. Only triply. He kept constantly alert, avoided daydreams, bearing in mind his great responsibility to his king and the kingdom. And he scrutinized every creature that passed, even if it was only a haphazard meandering butterfly. He cautioned Harvey, Garby, and Wetmore to do the same. Whenever the guard was changed, he waddled out as another sidled in. He warned, be careful, be watchful. And they were watchful. But in the next several days, first a great many gold pieces were missing. After that, some precious silver ornament, and then the prize of the treasury, the world-famous Kallikak diamond. King Basil was frantic. He strode up and down, his purple robe draping behind him. He had Gawain and his helpers on the carpet in front of his throne, and he questioned them closely over and over. Their answers were always the same. They had been on constant duty. At night, the guard had been doubted to make certain there was no nodding or dozing, and certainly no sleeping. Their heads were never under their wings. Gawain, the chief, had made his round not once daily, but twice. checking the treasures with scrupulous care. There was no way to count for the disappearances. Once during the questioning, his webbed feet deep in the pile of King's red carpet. Gawain had the impression that King looked at him a bit too searchingly, a bit suspiciously, in fact. He quivered and he returned a clear, unblinking gaze with his button-like eyes. He loved this large, warm, furry king with the fat, furry ears who wore his royal purple so carefully. He understood his being upset, but he was offended. Begging your honorable indulgence, he said with a tinge of irony in his tone. Isn't it the realm of possibility that your regal self made a royal mistake? I humbly kiss your warm and furry feet, and I hope you don't think me disrespectful. If I suggest that, mayhap you yourself removed some of those treasured objects, and preoccupied as you are with the lofty responsibilities of the monarch, have forgotten you did so. This tactless statement seemed to Basil wholly uncalled for. He stared at the insolent goose and brown fur bristly on his nape. I know what I am doing, Gawain, he roared. The king makes no mistakes. Excuse me? And Gawain changed his tone. How dare I? And he snapped the bill shut and hung his head. The uncountable turn of events had King Basil flabbergasted. He hated this problem that had no solution. He called a special meeting of royal cabinet and asked for their opinion. Who has keys? Asked his prime minister, Adrian the cat, though he already knew the answer. Only my royal self and Gawain, answered Basil. The treasury is built of solid stones, well fitted and a foot thick, said Prime Minister, and it was in a words of good heavy oak. The floor is also a stone, and the building had no windows, no chimney, no cellaway. The thick wooden door is banded with riveted iron and locked with 4 sturdy locks. None of the locks is broken or shows sign of having been tampered with. They've been examined by the best locksmiths. Since your highness would never rob his extraordinary self, who else could it been but Gawain? No one here believes in ghosts. It was not Gawain, said the king firmly. He is honorable goose, as everyone knows. I trust him as much as I do myself. The fact is, I love him as I would a son. Love him like a son, if you will, said Adrian with visible envy. But as prime minister, I cannot be guided by such irrational sentiments. Treasure is missing from the treasury. Of that there is no question. There is no access or egress except through the door. No locks had been broken, and only you and your beloved goose have keys. This fact, the culprit has to be either Gawain or begging your lofty forgiveness yourself. Since you have no reason to despoil your own treasury, and since it is unthinkable for you to be wrong about any earthly thing, Gawain is the only logical answer to the question of who did it. And Adrian made an obsequious bow. His tail rose, wavered, and arched over as it ended in official Latin. Code erat demonstratrum. The king didn't know what to say in response to the prime minister's foolish reasoning. He trusted the operations of a Adrian's mind more than he did his own instinct. He sent his counselors away and slumped in his throne, dejected. Having listened to an opinion he didn't really believe but was forced to respect, he grew careful. He grew confused and fell into muddled ponderings. His mind was closed with wayward shadows. He brooded, and the more he brooded, the more he became darkly convinced that his beloved Gawain, no matter his bright, innocent eyes, and despite his untarnished record, was deep, and trusting him had been that dartish error. Gawain, at home, in a sleep troubled by worries, was roused out of bed at midnight, allowed 1 minute to get dressed, and dragged to the castle dungeon. There, he was stripped of his red and gold uniform and given the drab garb of the prisoner. His halberd and his keys were taken away, and he was flung into a damp cell by a rude wardens. He sat in a cell on a cold stone floor in a state of shock, wondering why Good Goose had done his duty, now confused in a dirty dungeon. 네, 여기까지 읽었는데요. 12페이지까지 읽었는데 지금 가윈이 키를 가지고 있고 왕이 키를 가지고 있는데 그 안에 보석이 지금 사라지고 있고 27개의 보석이 지금 부족하다 하면서 왕이 노발대발하면서 가윈에게 의심을 하는 눈치이고 또 나중에 가윈은 왕이 굉장히 총애하는 건데 거기에 프라임 미니스터가 이 가윈을 또 시기하는 질투로 왕에 대해서 이야기를 하면서 왕과 가윈 둘 중에 한 사람이 이걸 가져갔을 거다라고 또 이야기를 하는 부분이고요. 오늘은 가윈이 또 셀에 감옥에 갇혀진 그런 상황까지 읽었습니다.